If you're ready to welcome Wes Kennison from Launch Media, let's go ahead and give him a round of applause. I'll hand it right over to him. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. I remember very vividly the day that graphic design changed my life at work. As a video guy, there were always these moments where we had to do projects and we had to create videos that didn't have cameras involved, ever. So we had to figure out, myself and the far more skilled people around me, how we were going to build a level of consistency and value into what we were creating completely from scratch. So it's not without a certain amount of cringe factor that I look back on walking into an animator's office with a script, just words on a page, and asking them to create something beautiful. Just jump right in. And that's not really problematic so much as it is skipping some steps, namely the ones that lead to a well-designed, well-rounded visual aesthetic. So, we've spent a lot of time thinking about how to do that. And the day that it all really shifted, the monumental shift for me and the people that I work with at Launch Media, was the day that we decided to bring in a graphic designer to sort of look at the script, look at a very rough storyboard. They're always very rough. That's a totally useless caveat. And build the foundational building blocks of what that end product was going to be, incorporating the elements and the principles of graphic design divided up by scene. It was such a big shift because it allowed the animators to animate, and it empowered the designer in this case, to do something that he had never done before. It was a completely unique moment in time for all of us. What that yielded was, starting with the script, we went from this, the words on the page, to this aforementioned very rough storyboard. Please don't look too hard at that. To this, the actual design boards that we were able to get from the designer. You can see there's little pieces of the puzzle kind of peppered in there. But there's a real strong sense of foundation, which enabled us to come in and breathe a little bit of life into it and make it move and create connections that were firmly established during that design phase. So this may or may not look like a monumental kind of a watershed moment, but for us, it had the effect of this epiphany of, okay, we can do better and we can constantly evolve when it comes to these projects that for a long time were filled with unknowns and were filled with approval processes that were just monstrous and would turn sideways on you very quickly. So that's it. That's what I want to talk about today. That's kind of the epiphany that I'd like to simulate for everyone here. I'd like to start that train of thought, and I'd love for everyone to leave here thinking about design and video content in a totally different way. My agenda, pretty straightforward. Make sure you record these, write them down. A little bit about me. I am a dad. I am a husband. I'm a drummer, a guitarist, a mini guitarist. I'm a mediocre singer. I am a director and editor. I've managed to maintain a fairly loose affiliation with cameras over the years, both on the ground and in the air. I am a beer drinker, a bacon enthusiast, but most importantly to today's conversation, I'm a firm believer in the fact that we can all, every single one of us, pick our place in the world if we can envision it, own it, and do the work. There's never been a better time to make moving images come to life on a screen, and so I consider myself incredibly fortunate to get to come to this space every single day and do that with a group of people who are amazing and talented and, to be honest, quite more skilled than I am. I'm the creative director at Launch Media, and I direct projects here. I sometimes edit, sometimes shoot. When I'm not doing that, I am overseeing and supporting a team of directors, junior level staff members, freelancers that make Launch Media what it is. Our focus is uniquely useful motion animated video content. We take what matters most to our clients and we visualize it in such a way that allows them to share it, and it's a lot more portable, it's a lot more accessible. That's why we exist. That's why we do what we do. Okay, so you all know everything about me. Show of hands. How many of you are designers, illustrators in a primarily static medium? So web, print, CPG, show of hands. Okay, cool. How many of you have worked with a video or animated content producer before? Cool, nice, awesome. How many of you do that regularly, are actively involved in that process professionally? Cool, awesome, some of you, great. How many of you have ever opened up After Effects and explored that vast desert landscape? Okay, cool, all right. How many of you do that regularly? Awesome, cool. So for those people who do that regularly, and really everyone in the room, I want this to be as useful as possible. So I have a confession to make. I am an imposter. In nobody's world am I qualified to stand up here and define graphic design in terms of video and where they fit. That's just not what this is. It's not what it's designed to be. I'm not that person. What I really want to do today is share my ideas and my experiences with you guys in the hopes that when this is all over, when crop is done and we've all benefited and we've grown, we can come together and I can get to know each and every one of you a little bit better. More on that a little bit later. Okay, so regardless of where you fall in the spectrum, there's definitely a good diverse mix of designers and illustrators in this room. Regardless of where you fall in the mix, you typically have one layout or 7 layouts, but each of those layouts, those frames, is a single static image, and you have to build value into that image. You have to create a sense of cohesion. People have to connect with it. They have to see it and feel a part of it, ultimately. It has to compel in a very specific way. For us who are video and animated content producers, we have 24 frames every single second to accomplish the same thing. So it's really not even fair when you think about it, but that's the main difference. Sequential, thinking sequentially, operating sequentially, versus operating in a static space. Now, where we intersect, where we are the same is a lot more interesting. We operate at this interesting crossroads between mystery and certainty, between commerce and art, between tangible and concept. And our clients come to us to filter all that out, make it make sense, and deliver a visualized solution. To me, that's probably the most exciting thing about what we do. We get to hear about a need, we get to see how that need can be played out visually, and then we roll up our sleeves and we put our little nimble, typey fingers to work, making that vision a reality. So you guys, the designers, the static creators, have so much power in that equation of taking something that began in a camera and enhancing it and making it something much more than what it was when it started. So the best way to get started in thinking about designing for video is to maybe I don't know, this may or may not work, but a frame within the frames. So with a camera-based project, 90% of those images are going to be sculpted in a camera. So the designer's role in those projects is to ultimately enhance the images that are being created, that are being edited. We show up, we light the scene, we hit record, and the end product is going to be composed largely of those images. So you have a starting ground, you have a foundation, you have a place to begin to build from. Long before we bust out a camera at launch, though, our process is tiered in such a way that allows us to sort of explore why we're doing what we're doing, how we want to approach that need creatively, and then what it's all going to look like. We outline every single storyline, even the ones that are interview-driven. And what we've found to be incredibly helpful when we get those projects into post is to call on a graphic designer to help us make that vision come to life once we get to post. Every now and again we get it done in pre-production, but we tend to roll 15, 20 projects at a time here at launch, so a lot of times that doesn't even make sense, really. Cool, so just so you guys can kind of begin to think tangibly about some of the stuff that designers make, we ask designers to make lower thirds, kind of the identifiers. A half screen there, reinforcing what he's saying. We have title cards, little pretties, very chemical. We've also used sort of composite elements that accent what's going on in the scene. And then we've got motion tracked elements, type treatments that can just kind of reinforce what's being said, reinforce the image in some way. So some specific examples. We were contracted by Mary Bird Perkins Cancer Center, our client, to make a mini documentary about their healing arts program. Most specifically, this massive 40 by 40 stained glass window that uses an interesting technique called chameau, where they layer the glass on top of itself, and then they texture it, and it has effects on the way the light diffracts, it has effects on the way you see it, the way you experience it visually. We were given a pretty solid, very clean branding identity from a staff designer there, and then we sort of brought it to life, made it move a little bit, and we tried to encompass the ethereal quality of sitting in that room on the other side of the sun when you're looking at this stained glass. You see some lower third design there. We also used kind of a canvas texture and the color of the artwork that's being featured to build some transitions between people, just to kind of, again, add more cohesion. There's the inside of the room there. Very beautiful piece that came together very well. And rooted firmly in what was a simple but clean identity, a branding identity. Next up is something that we worked with Stun Design on here in town for the Southern Ag Center. They delivered a very, very basic graphics package, full screen, lower third, half screen. And then Daniel Small here at launch created a very, very interesting and smooth, clean animation of that. It's exactly what I needed. He treated the assets very well. And they were able to now have an added value to the video. It wasn't just some shots of people farming things. And my favorite, we just wrapped this one up, something we did for LEH, Louisiana Endowment for the Humanities. They have this just massive subject matter. They do a lot of stuff. It's very esoteric and hard to wrap one's head around. So the challenge of the project was to bring people together around what the humanities mean. So we worked with Studio Gray to do some typography. We wanted to use the form of the state in there somewhere. And we also wanted to kind of capture some of that gritty cultural texture that is living in Louisiana. So we were delivered those frames that you just saw, and then we were able to kind of make those move together and just add a little bit of life to what we were talking about. They as a nonprofit, this was actually part of a nonprofit giveaway that we did. They have so much trouble talking about what they do because it's vast and they do so many different things. So our challenge was to condense that into a format that was accessible and it had a little bit of eye candy, for lack of a better word. So all these things are what can be loosely referred to as a graphics package. Pretty self-explanatory. It's important to note that every project's a little bit different from a scheduling standpoint, from a timeline standpoint. But usually projects need the same 3 or 4 things. We typically have a branding identity established whenever we go into a video project. So the graphics package references that. Any questions about this? This may be one-on-one for you guys, but. Okay, cool. All right, so I will probably be tarred and feathered for showing this to you guys because it's so old, but by our post department, people in post. But we worked on a project. It was our first 2D, 3D integrated project where we weren't just animating things that were built in Illustrator or Photoshop, but we were combining elements from a variety of softwares using different techniques, and trying to create a very shiny, very, very, very shiny spot that would air in Cameroon, West Africa. That's kind of where the first media buy was. Now, I don't really believe in coincidence as a thing. Some of you may, so here's one for you. I lived in Cameroon for about 4 years when I was a kid. Completely disconnected scenario where we got this call to do this project. So, needless to say, I was a good fit. Everything was cool, you know, we kind of got things moving. We got it to a point where it was ready for voiceover, and that's where things got a little bit interesting. For those of you who don't know how voiceover typically works here in the States, you know, we call an agent, they do a casting call, the talent reads portions of the script, you know, we get those auditions, we show them to the client selects them, and everyone's happy, and we call in and we get to direct the talent and make it come to life, and it's this just really seamless and cool experience. But that's not how they operate en France. It's not how it works over there. Pretty much every single talent that I picked that I liked, that I felt was a good fit, when I asked for a custom read, you know, they were all, mais non. I'm sorry, but I cannot just read you a voiceover without payment. It's not how this works. French voiceover. So I get it. You know, they don't know me. They've never talked to me. It's an international transaction. The line that I wanted them to read was 2 lines long. So who's to say that I'm not just going to take it and put it in my African commercial? Whatever. All right. It's fine. I'm not mad. So when it came time to actually send these reels, because that's what I had to do, was pull their reels and send them to the client, you know, built a little folder. I picked up French along the way. They speak French in Cameroon, lived in France for a while. I kind of slid my own little voiceover audition, slid it in the folder, sent it on. We were, I don't know, like 3 or 4 agencies removed from the actual client. So I don't think that to this day that they know that the person directing, producing the project was the one who voiced it. As you can imagine, they selected Wes Kennison. You know, everybody was very good, but we really feel that Wes Kennison is the best fit for this project. So I want to play it for you guys, just because. And I wrestled with this, okay? Like I didn't really want to do this, but I'm going to play it for you guys just so you can hear it. Grain of salt, big grain of salt. We didn't pick the music. We were forced into the EDM party you're about to be subjected to. Wait for the drop.
Planète, ton monde, ta vie.
There it is. There it is. All that rigmarole for 2 lines. So overnight, I'm an international voiceover talent. It's pretty cool. And there's this little village in the northern province of Cameroon, right up here. And about 10,000 people. The spot actually aired nationwide, got a lot of heavy play, and the drink was wildly popular in this little place that I called home for a while. So I call that my most grassroots success in advertising. So there's a point to this story, aside from the fact that it's a cool story. It represents our first foray into 2D, 3D animation. Now there's a mountain, just a growing flood of beautiful animated content out there that sort of ups the level of of taking some things, again, that were built in Photoshop or Illustrator, animating the things around, making them move. And that's the stuff that I enjoy looking at the most. I actually call it humility. Excuse me. Humility clicking, where you're going through the web and you're looking at all these beautiful animation that these people have managed to create. But what you're seeing here is sort of a different type of production. Again, loose terms here, nothing solid. It's driven by design. It's design-driven production. Some studios that I'm a big fan of, just to share and geek out for a moment. Elastic, Buck, heavy hitters. This is my favorite one. Little carrot. Got to give me some of that. PSYOP. Great stuff there. Awesome Inc. You watch cartoons, Cartoon Network. You've probably seen some of their stuff, Adult Swim. Really cool stuff. This is Cub in London. Fraser Davidson. He's got some podcasts out there. I highly recommend listening to them if you're interested in this kind of thing. Golden Wolf, also in London. They do some great cell animated type content on top of real world footage, which I love. And Giant Ant in Canada. Really diverse body of work there. They do most of it in-house too, which is impressive. And then locally, there's Flatland in New Orleans. And in Baton Rouge, there's Elbow Room. All designers, all animators, doing some really cool stuff. So this is just an itty-bitty snapshot of the stuff that's being created. Because of the multidisciplinary approach that it takes to make it come to life and make it have the value that you see before you in those samples I showed you. There's a really diverse team of people that have to come together, typically more specialist roles. And when you look at the credits for these types of things, they're 15, 20 people deep. And really, it's commercial art. It's a very very probably picky and well-informed, technically savvy group of people that come together and make it happen. Which, in my mind, showcases the power of collective. In broad strokes, these projects have a process of creative brief into script, style frames and storyboards, animatic and audio, which is kind of a rough version that establishes timing, and then actual production. So you see how front-loaded that project is. Those types of projects are rather. It does not allow you to walk into an animator's office with a script and tell them to blow your mind. You have to take your time, and you have to really be critical, and you have to work together, most importantly. So in those types of projects, style frames and storyboards are really where designers and illustrators get the most play. That's something we've been focusing on a lot lately is style frames. So it's not a storyboard, it's not a sketch. It's a set of frames that imply a sense of motion and imply a sense of texture, visual aesthetic, that you then have to execute later. We always start with a sketch here. I've lately taken to writing on my wall. I've got a little whiteboard wall there in the office. And I don't really have any style frame samples to show you because it's something that we've just begun working on and we're making great progress in doing it. But all of these efforts lead to a translation. And there's a translative effect that happens when you begin in a static space. And every little detail in those frames is something that is the product of a group of people's opinions and life experiences and technical savvy, to be totally honest. So I wanted just to kind of just show some quick examples. I mean, this is nothing mind-blowing, but the idea here is to show a sense of progression and show what's possible. I mean, this is something we did in 20 minutes just to kind of illustrate an evolution from very simple to slightly more complex. So I want you to think of your favorite thing that you've ever built for you, not for a client or for a project, but the thing that you built for you that is your most prized portfolio piece. And imagine what's possible there. Imagine what would happen if you made that thing move and if you breathed a little bit of life into it in a very intentional and specific way. I really enjoyed everything that Post Parlor had to say earlier. You know, there's a lot of overlap, I think, in our philosophies. I would like to add a bit of a wrinkle to the story conversation because I think it bears mention. You know, we love stories. Stories are an absolutely quintessential aspect of the human experience. They've got their root in really predating the spoken word. That's how we got our sense of culture. That's how we got our sense of history, our sense of law. There's a lot going on there. So anything that I say after this, I don't want to be viewed as disparaging story because it's not. I think it's an absolutely essential part of being a human today. And I think that discourse is so important for us to be thinking about story in that way. I have noticed that there are storytellers everywhere, though, these days. It's a big part of the discourse. People call themselves storytellers, and they work really hard to sort of project that. And again, I think that's important. But when we're in a commercial setting, and we have clients who have believed in our crazy-ass ideas to pay us to go make them happen, which for me, it absolutely has to work. It has to do something at the end of it. There has to be a sense of inclusion with the people who that thing was made for that carries on beyond the story. So I don't see these two things as different by any shape of the imagination. I think they're part of the same whole. But my contention is that story is a tool, just like a software is a tool, just like a camera is a tool, because it builds a narrative and it builds a sense of community around a thing, whatever that thing is that you're creating. And probably one of the biggest differences between story and narrative is that stories end, but narratives feature an invitation to participate, which is huge. It's huge. That's your call to action, your ultimate call to action, and that's why I feel that focusing on narrative-based concepts and at least having that be a part of the developmental conversation is absolutely critical. As a designer, as a motion content creator, as somebody who builds websites, that sense of narrative and that sense of community involvement is really where you move the needle, and that's just my opinion. So that invitation to participate thing is pretty big. And that's kind of what I'd like to end on today, getting back to that whole getting to know each and every one of you after crop is over and we all go back to work. The first time I ever heard about the Creative Block, I was walking through John Jackson's office. He's the founder of Creative Block, founder of Launch Media. It was like a Tuesday morning, like 9:15. And, head down, going to get coffee. Please don't talk to me. He was like, dude, there's this building downtown. It's got this old warehouse in the back. There's like 3 adjacent properties, and I think we can kind of renovate everything, and we can, do this cool creative space where people come, and it's like an open floor plan, and we get together and we build a collective, right? We allow people to congregate around the creative endeavors. And I was just like, man, you're gonna have to let me caffeinate before we talk further about this idea. But, here we are. We're sitting in the studio 3 years later. If you guys haven't seen it already, check out the video on the website. It kind of chronicles the whole monstrous hike that was the renovation. But the idea is to combine people and create a cluster point, if you will, for folks to come together and work around a central creative endeavor, whatever that may be. We're glad you guys are here. We really wanted y'all to come and check out the space and get a sense of what we're trying to do. But more importantly, I'm going to announce something today that is kind of our next level effort to bring people together around a central creative endeavor. The very tentatively titled Creative Block Design and Motion Collective is something that's been kind of brewing beneath the surface for a real long time. In that name of, bringing people together around a central cause to elevate it and to do more and to do better. What we'd like to do is to bring designers, illustrators, and animators together, there's just one rule, and that is the thing that you, the designer or illustrator, bring to the table to be animated is something you made for you. It's something you made for yourself. The animators will take those ideas and create an animation. It could be 5 seconds, it could be 20, it depends. It's a dialogue, it's a conversation. And then we'll post those to a central place. So anyone involved can look at it and say, oh yeah, I do that too. It's just goes back to the idea that you can do the type of work you want to do. Every single person in here can do the type of work they want to do every single day by doing the type of work that they want to do. So, I'm pretty easy to find. I'm here all the time. I've got a stack of business cards in the back. I've also got a little sign-up sheet, if you'd rather do that. What I'd like to do is kind of amass some contact information for designers and illustrators that are interested in taking part. We'll meet, every 2 weeks, every month, who knows? We'll figure that out. I'll figure out all the details. And I'd like to build something together. I'd like to build a landing page where we can all point people towards a different type of thing that belongs to all of us. I mentioned being a musician. That was my favorite part of being in a band, always. It wasn't the gig so much as it was walking into a space with 3 or 4 people who you loved dearly and knew really well. You probably fought sometimes, but that was just, it's part of the deal. It's part of the mix. And then presenting some ideas and walking out of that room 3 hours later with something completely different that belonged to all of you. And that's kind of what I'm hoping to simulate. And I'm hoping that you guys will join me in that endeavor. Wes at launchmedia.tv. That's my time. Thank you all very much. Appreciate y'all being here.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wes Kennison. That was awesome. And I think now we're going to, cut the lights back on and take a break.